Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
In a world that feels, well, absolutely overloaded with information, our mission is simple. Cut through the noise.
Yeah, get straight to the insights that actually matter.
That's what we do. We take a whole stack of sources, articles, research notes, you name it, and we dig deep.
We pull out the most important bits, connect the dots, and give you just enough context so you feel genuinely informed, but, without getting buried in details.
And today, we're diving into something really fascinating. We're looking into the minds of people who don't just watch the future happen.
No, they actively build it.
Exactly. We're talking visionary leaders, icons, across, well, pretty much everywhere. Tech, science, arts, philosophy, even sports.
And our deep dive today is based on this really compelling report. It's called Visionaries' Blueprint, How Icons See the Future.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it pulls together insights on all these transformative figures, looks for the common threads, and how they operate.
Okay, so our goal then is to unpack this blueprint. What are the core traits? What makes these people tick?
Right, and what methods do they use? How do they turn these, huge ideas into actual reality?
And the challenges too, right? What do they face?
Definitely. And ultimately, what can you learn from how they see the world and how they drive change?
Okay, let's start with that word visionary. What does the report actually mean by that? Because it's kind of a buzzword sometimes.
It is, and the report makes a really important distinction right at the start. It's not just about predicting trends or seeing what's coming next.
Okay.
Being a visionary, according to this source, is about seeing the potential for change, but then also having the ability to lead other people to actually create that change.
Ah, okay. So it's the leading part too. They're not just forecasting, they're actively shaping it.
Exactly. The source calls them forward thinkers and innovators and talks about this incredible big picture view they have.
They invent the future, not just anticipate it. That feels like a really key difference.
It absolutely is. And when the report uses the word icon, that's like another layer. It means someone who's become a symbol, really revered for their groundbreaking work and the lasting influence they've had. They leave a real mark.
And the report argues this is super critical right now, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. With tech moving so fast, global challenges piling up. Just reacting. That's not enough anymore.
Yeah.
The source calls adaptability a vital leadership skill. You just have to be able to adjust.
There's a line in there that really jumped out at me. Something like, in a world that's changing really quickly, the only strategy guaranteed to fail is not taking risks.
Yeah, that hits hard, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
It really underlines that proactive future-building stance we're talking about. You can't just play it safe.
I liked the metaphor they use for philosophers, too, calling them navigators.
Guiding society through, uncharted waters.
Yeah, providing that direction and wisdom when the path isn't clear at all.
And another fascinating thread that runs through the sources is this idea of interdisciplinarity.
Ah, yeah, combining different fields.
Right. The really big breakthroughs often seem to come from mixing ideas, not just digging deeper in one single area.
Like Leonardo da Vinci, art and science together.
Exactly. Or Steve Jobs connecting humanities and tech. The source calls it connecting the unconnected.
Finding new possibilities in those gaps between the disciplines.
Precisely. So, okay, that gives us a sense of who we're talking about. But what does the report say are the core qualities, the psychological traits these people share?
Well, the first one that just leaps off the page is insatiable curiosity and imagination.
Okay.
The report describes it as an imagination unconditioned by his surroundings. They're constantly asking questions, even questioning themselves. They're really not afraid to dream big.
Right. It's not just being vaguely interested. It's this deep, persistent drive to understand why things are the way they are and, crucially, what else could be possible. It fuels everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's that critical long-term outlook.
Thinking way ahead.
Yeah, prioritizing sustainable growth over immediate profits.
Yeah.
Keeping their eyes fixed on these long-term goals that might be decades away.
Decades. Like Elon Musk's vision for Mars, right? That's not a quarterly target.
Not at all. Or Bezos talking about his 7-year horizon for major initiatives.
They're definitely playing a much longer game than most.
And playing that long game, well, it requires a high tolerance for risk. But specifically, what the report calls calculated risks.
Calculated, yeah. So not just reckless gambling.
Right. Failure isn't the end.
Yeah.
It's explicitly seen as an essential part of innovation.
The source mentions Steve Jobs, how he turned each failure into a learning experience. And Musk's whole career is just, filled with these high-risk ventures. You have to be willing to fail strategically if you want to find something new.
They're also described as being incredibly focused, like highly focused.
Laser focus.
Yeah, this unwavering commitment. They don't get easily bounced off the path by setbacks or, distractions.
You think of Jobs again, his uncompromising pursuit of perfection. Right.
And that relentless focus on just a few key products, that kind of intensity, well, it's often needed to push really ambitious ideas through huge resistance.
And underlying all of that, there's this deep passion.
Yeah, you got to have that.
A genuine enthusiasm, an unshakable belief in their ideas, even when everyone else is saying, no way.
Yeah, passion, that's the fuel. Right. It keeps them going, and it's what inspires other people to jump on board.
Definitely. And finally, the ability to adapt. That seems non-negotiable.
Oh, absolutely. They have to navigate constant change, evolving technologies, market dynamics.
And they foster a culture where teams learn and pivot and grow as the landscape shifts around them.
Okay, so those are some key internal drivers, the traits. But how do they actually, translate that vision and passion into real-world change? The report gets into their methodologies, too.
Yeah, and a big one is first principles thinking.
Ah, okay. Explain that a bit.
Instead of just tweaking what already exists, they break problems down to their absolute fundamental truths, like the very basics.
And then they build up totally novel solutions from there. It's like asking, what is the core physics of this problem? Not how can we make this existing thing 10% better?
Right. So instead of asking, how can we make a slightly better gasoline car, Musk asks, what's the fundamental purpose of moving people? And how can we do that super efficiently? Leads to electric vehicles, tunnels.
Exactly. Radical approaches.
Okay, what else?
Another one, especially in business, is customer or human obsession. The report really highlights Bezos here.
Amazon's whole thing.
Yeah, focusing on delivering exceptional value, anticipating what customers need, often before they even knew it themselves.
He famously said unhappy customers were his greatest source of learning.
Right. It's not just like running a survey. It's this deep, almost intuitive grasp of human needs and wants, even the ones people can't articulate yet.
Steve Jobs, on the other hand, really championed user-centered design.
Starting with the experience.
Exactly. His process began with the customer experience and worked backward to technology, always prioritizing simplicity and usability.
Making incredibly complex tech feel just effortless, intuitive. That's the magic of designing with the human first, isn't it?
Definitely. The report also stresses how these visionaries embrace experimentation and failure, like as a deliberate method.
Right, not just tolerate it.
No, they build environments where employees feel safe to pitch bold ideas. They treat failures as learning opportunities.
It's almost like budgeting for failure, right? Seeing it as a necessary cost if you're going to explore truly new ground.
Yeah, Bezos even talks about good failures.
Good failures.
Yeah, experiments that didn't pan out but taught you something valuable. That's different from just, messing up operations.
That's interesting. Okay, what else?
Well, strategic decision-making is obviously key. Assessing risks, making informed choices confidently, even without all the data.
The report mentions Bezos' 70% rule.
Right. Decide when you have about 70% of the information you wish you had. Don't wait for 100%.
You'll wait forever sometimes.
Exactly. It lets them move fast in dynamic environments, but without being totally reckless. It's balancing information with the need for action.
Makes sense. And the last one.
Collaborative leadership and communication. Fostering environments where ideas can flow freely and being able to articulate a really compelling vision that gets everyone pulling in the same direction.
The report mentions Bezos' famous 2 pizza teams.
Keep teams small and agile.
And those 6-page narrative memos instead of PowerPoint.
Yeah, forcing rigorous, clear thinking. These are like structural ways they engineer the company to maintain focus and alignment around the vision.
Okay, so we've got these internal traits, these external methods, but the report makes a really crucial point. They're not separate things.
No, not at all. There's this powerful synergistic relationship. It's a feedback loop.
How so?
Well, think about that long-term vision we talked about.
Okay.
That provides the patience you need for the sustained experimentation methodology, right?
Right. You can't expect breakthroughs overnight.
Exactly. And trying those bold experiments inherently requires that high tolerance for calculated risk we mentioned earlier.
Ah, I see. And the insatiable curiosity.
That drives the deep dive you need for first principles thinking. You have to be curious to break things down that far.
So the traits make the methods possible.
And practicing the methods reinforces and strengthens those traits. They kind of amplify each other's impact.
Got it. The report also talks about the day one philosophy, right?
Right.
Particularly with Bezos.
Yeah, that's a huge one for understanding Amazon's culture. It's about combating what he calls organizational entropy, meaning the natural tendency for big companies to become slow, bureaucratic, internally focused.
Complacent.
Exactly. Day one is this constant effort to maintain the urgency, the agility, the customer obsession of a startup, even when you're huge.
Resisting day two, as he calls it.
Right. It's like deliberately engineering the culture to perpetuate that vision, that startup energy, institutionalizing it.
Now, there's a tricky part the report touches on, too, regarding leadership styles. These sometimes unconventional or even abrasive styles.
Yeah, that's a complex area. The source notes Jobs' intense controlling leadership style, calls him abrasive sometimes. And Musk has a reputation for intense demands, a relentless work culture.
And the report acknowledges this can cause problems, right? Like trust issues or burnout.
Absolutely. It doesn't shy away from that. But, and this is the really interesting tension, it also explicitly links those challenging styles to getting groundbreaking projects done and launching revolutionary products.
So what's the implication there?
Well, it's tricky. The source seems to suggest that maybe some of that assertiveness, that uncompromising nature, while difficult, might also be what enables these leaders to push boundaries so hard, to overcome the massive resistance, internal and external, that radical change always faces.
Resistance that maybe a more conventional style would just yield to.
Possibly. It's a really thought-provoking, maybe uncomfortable point the report raises about the potential link between radical innovation and these intense personalities.
Okay, let's make this more concrete. How does this blueprint, the traits, methods, dynamics, actually play out in specific examples? The report covers a lot of ground.
It does. Let's start with tech. Elon Musk is a prime example. His core driver, according to the source, is huge: the preservation of consciousness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he genuinely believes humanity needs a backup plan, becoming multiplanetary. That's what drives SpaceX's Mars goal.
And he uses that idea of existential threat as a motivator.
Absolutely. And you see first principles thinking everywhere. Rethinking rockets from the ground up at SpaceX, electric vehicles at Tesla.
Though the report does mention sometimes there's a gap, right, between the grand vision, like Hyperloop speeds, and what actually gets built initially.
True. Implementation challenges are real. Then you have Jeff Bezos, his whole empire, built on that customer obsession as the absolute cornerstone.
Combined with the long-term outlook and that day one thing we just discussed.
Exactly. That thinking didn't just create an online knock store, it created the everything store, and crucially, the foundation of cloud computing with AWS.
He used that flywheel effect, right?
Yeah.
Lower prices, more customers, more sellers, more selection, even more customers.
Yeah, building incredible momentum. And he deliberately made good failures an expected cost of innovation. That was a strategy.
And Steve Jobs,
Yeah.
driven by this belief in using tech to improve the world, right? Merging tech and humanities.
Yeah, bringing great design and simple capability to tools people use every day. He revolutionized personal computing with the Mac, digital media with iPod and iTunes, mobile with the iPhone.
His mantra was, think different. And his method was that user-centered design, start with the experience, work backward to the tech.
And that famous reality distortion field.
Yes.
That mix of charisma and just sheer conviction that made people believe they could actually do the impossible.
Okay, let's shift gears. Science.
Okay.
Albert Einstein.
Right. He was searching for this unified field theory, believed the universe had this fundamental order, famously saying, God does not play dice.
He saw science as part of culture, part of philosophy almost.
Absolutely. And his work on relativity, well, it completely changed how we understand space, time, gravity. We still use it, like, for GPS today.
His method was that blend of deep thinking, theoretical contemplation, thought experiments.
Just with scientific observation, yeah. Then Marie Curie, devoted her life to using science for human alleviation.
Discovering polonium, radium, pioneering radiotherapy.
And maybe the best example of her practical drive, developing and pushing for those mobile X-ray units, the little curious, during World War I.
Incredible, and her legacy for women in science is huge.
Immense. Her methodology, relentless resolve, that insatiable curiosity again, intense observation, and always focusing on practical application for human good.
Nikola Tesla. That was his big vision.
Wireless everything, basically. A world wireless system. He believed in inexhaustible clean energy that was free for everyone.
Wow. He pioneered AC power systems, obviously, but also foresaw things like wireless communication to handheld devices.
Yeah, way ahead of his time. His method was tons of experimentation and this unique, almost mystical view of the universe's energy. He talked about resonance, the music of the spheres.
And Leonardo da Vinci,
Yeah.
the ultimate Renaissance man.
Driven by that insatiable curiosity about literally everything, he saw art and science as totally inseparable.
Learning through direct observation,
Yeah.
connecting the unconnected.
Exactly. His notebooks are just mind-blowing. Designs for flying machines, helicopters, detailed anatomy studies, centuries early.
His method was that intense observation, meticulous recording, integrating science and art, and always moving from watching to doing to experimenting.
Moving into philosophy, Friedrich Nietzsche.
Okay.
He saw the future of humanity and philosophy as deeply linked. He predicted a globalized world facing a crisis of values, needing a new culture focused on giving people decisions about orientation.
His concepts like will to power, transvaluation of values, they were about questioning norms to create future possibility.
Precisely. He saw this crisis coming. He embraced uncertainty, called humans guessers of riddles, and stressed that we have to see the future as binding and decisive for all our value judgments. Powerful stuff.
Arthur C. Clarke, science fiction writer, but also a predictor.
Oh, yeah. His 3 laws about technology are incredibly insightful, especially the third one. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
That holds up.
It really does. And he accurately forecasted communication satellites, online banking, the internet, personal devices, grounding it all in science and thinking about the societal impact.
Ray Kurzweil, he's big in the AI future space.
Yeah, his main idea is the law of accelerating returns. The key technologies, computing, genetics, AI, they don't grow linearly, they grow exponentially.
And he predicts the singularity around 2045, where machine intelligence surpasses human.
That's the prediction. He successfully predicted things like mobile computing, cloud computing, based on observing these exponential trends like Moore's law and seeing tech evolution as these S-curves.
Okay, what about arts and culture? Pablo Picasso.
He believed art must challenge conventions. It needs authenticity, passion. He didn't just paint pretty pictures. He totally changed how we see form and perspective with Cubism, pioneered collage too.
His method involved looking at diverse art, like African and Iberian.
Right, exploring simplified forms, constantly dismantling norms to force us to see differently.
Wait. Art and politics.
Completely intertwined for him. Everything is art. Everything is politics, he says. He uses art to tackle huge issues. Human rights in China, corruption, the refugee crisis.
Directly challenging power.
Yes,
Yeah.
using humor, provocation, messing with cultural artifacts.
Yeah.
And he was an early adopter of digital media blogs, Twitter, to get his message out. His activism comes straight from personal experience.
And the source mentions the significant pushback he's faced.
Oh, major persecution from Chinese authorities, censorship, beatings, detention. But it also notes he critiques the West, too, for perceived moral double standards, and he's skeptical about AI replacing human creativity in art.
Okay, last domain, Doc Sports. Michael Jordan.
Just that insatiable inner drive, right? That fierce competitive spirit. He famously said, "I failed over and over. That is why I succeed."
He totally changed basketball, elevated the NBA globally, and basically invented the athlete as brand concept with Air Jordan.
His method, unmatched work ethic, insane mental toughness under pressure, leading by example, and smart business moves off the court.
Serena Williams.
Unapologetic intensity and power. She's a huge advocate for women's empowerment, equal pay, sees women's sports as this incredible investment opportunity.
Redefined women's tennis, huge inspiration, and she uses her platform, right? Invests in women's sports, startups.
Absolutely. Applies that same discipline from sports to business and advocacy. It's all connected.
And Pelé.
Yeah.
More than just a soccer player.
Way more. He believes soccer could bring people together, bridge divides, inspire hope, played with such passion and joy.
Elevated Brazil on the world stage. Became this global ambassador.
So much so, the source mentions his visit led to a temporary ceasefire in the Nigerian Civil War. Just incredible influence. His method was that unique skill and creativity combined with leveraging his global appeal for something bigger than the game.
Wow. Okay, so we see the blueprint in action. But, as you'd expect, pursuing these huge visions, it's not smooth sailing. The report talks about challenges and criticism.
Yeah, quite a bit. For Elon Musk, it points to that demanding, sometimes unpredictable leadership style, reports of burnout, those high expectations.
Hmm.
His social media use can be volatile, affecting stock prices, leading to legal issues.
Right.
And then there are the big questions about feasibility, the Mars colony timeline, is it distracting from Earth's problems? Ethical concerns around Neuralink invasiveness, safety, privacy, commodification. Some critics say the core tech isn't even that new.
And the Boring Company hasn't quite lived up to the initial hype on speed and scale yet.
Exactly. With Jeff Bezos, the criticisms often focus on Amazon's work culture. Those demanding quotas, high turnover, stress, underpayment issues.
Plus the monopoly power concerns.
Big time. Accusations of anti-competitive practices, complex tax avoidance, and the environmental impact of all that shipping.
Steve Jobs wasn't immune either. That autocratic, impatient, sometimes abrasive style.
Critics argued it could stifle creativity, make the company too dependent on him.
And ethical questions about manufacturing overseas. Labor practices.
Yes. Plus the whole closed ecosystem thing, limiting choice, controlling the platform, that drew criticism too.
What about Ray Kurzweil and the singularity? What are the pushbacks there?
Well, quite a few. Philosophers and AI researchers debate if machines can really achieve consciousness just through more processing power. Steven Pinker's quote is memorable. Sheer processing power is not a pixie dust.
Good line. And AI Weiwei? We touched on the challenges he faces.
Immense personal and political risks. The source details severe persecution by Chinese authorities, censorship, beatings, detention, house arrest for his activism.
But he also critiques the West.
Yeah, for what he sees as moral double standards. And he has concerns about things like AI replacing human creativity and the threat of nuclear war. He's grappling with big global issues from his unique position.
So despite all these challenges, criticisms, setbacks, the report argues their enduring impact is undeniable, right?
Absolutely. They are catalysts for progress. They drive change, push boundaries, fundamentally redefine what we even think is possible. They force industries, societies to evolve.
They actually reshape norms.
Yeah.
Change how people live, work, interact.
On a really fundamental level, yeah. Altering daily life, changing cultural landscapes in ways that last.
And they inspire others, don't they? Future generations.
Hugely. Motivating people to pursue excellence, challenge their own limits. Their influence spreads into education, philanthropy, social advocacy.
And their legacy often lives on long after them. Their ideas become like blueprints.
Totally. Think of Da Vinci's designs inspiring engineers centuries later, or Jobs' whole philosophy of user experience, or Tesla's ideas about wireless energy. They lay groundwork.
And the report concludes that in today's world, which feels incredibly complex, changing faster than ever, this kind of visionary leadership is essential.
More crucial than ever, it argues. You need that foresight, that courage to take risks, that conviction to mobilize people towards building a better future.
It's about cultivating that mindset, that proactive future-building approach we talked about at the start.
Exactly. You can't just react anymore.
So, okay, let's try and wrap this up. We've taken a pretty deep dive into this report's blueprint for iconic visionaries.
Yeah, we looked at those shared traits, the curiosity, the long-term view, the risk tolerance, the passion.
And the powerful methodologies they use. First principles, human obsession, user-centered design, embracing failure.
And critically, how those traits and methods work together. That synergistic relationship that lets them actually invent and shape the future, not just guess at it.
We saw examples across so many fields. Musk's Mars goal, Bezos' customer empire, Jobs' tech revolutions, Curie's science for humanity, Tesla's energy dreams, Da Vinci connecting everything.
Nietzsche questioning values, Clark forecasting tech, Kurzweil mapping acceleration, Picasso breaking forms, AIY merging art and activism, Jordan, Williams, Pele changing sports.
And we acknowledge the tough stuff, too.
Mm-hmm.
The intense scrutiny, the ethical knots, the skepticism, those sometimes difficult, unconventional styles that seem, well, weirdly linked to their ability to push through massive resistance.
Yeah, it's not a simple picture.
Yeah.
But their importance in driving progress, especially in a world changing this fast, seems really clear.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, maybe something for you, the listener, to think about as we finish.
Mm.
If the source is right, that these visionaries actively shape the future, they don't just predict it, and doing that requires challenging norms, thinking differently,
Yeah.
then what does understanding this blueprint mean for your own capacity?
Mm-hmm.
Your ability to navigate or maybe even influence the changes happening all around you right now and tomorrow?
That's a great question. It's not just about studying these famous figures from a distance, is it?
No.
It's maybe about considering what elements of this powerful blueprint, these ways of thinking and acting, might actually be relevant to how you approach the future in your own life, your own work, whatever that looks like.